So your part is, you have this kind of small defined part within the movie. Heartbreaking, by the way. I find so sad.
That's good.
Yeah, it really, it's this like emotional, like, heartbreak in the middle of the movie. From this girl who, clearly has a lot more involved in him than necessarily, he's sort of ready to accept, right?
Yeah.
He's sort of going on. But how long were you like initially on set? Like, how long were you guys in Slab City?
Right. We were down there for about a week.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And how much preparation was there before?
Because we had the songs to do, we had pre-recorded them initially, and then on the day he came up to me like 2 minutes before we were about to do it, and he goes, yeah, you know what, I really think it would be so much better if we just lose the tracks and you just do it. And I was like, okay, sure, Sean. It's like, so that prep was sort of not for nothing, because it was practice for me, but we like established the songs that we were going to do, and other than that, I went to a read through, and that was actually the first time I'd read the script. But yeah, the first time that I had heard the story, I didn't read it. I was at the read through, and it's heavy to go through something like that around so many people for the first time. But yeah, and it was kind of cool how it all came together, because he called me on my cell phone and was like, Sean, and he was like, hey, you want to do this with me? I'd really like you to. And I was like, no, I have really other things to do, so no. But it was unreal. It was great.
So it's funny you said, like, that he said to you, let's just do it. Let's just do it live.
Yeah.
Do it, which seems to be like everything I've read about the film, and his process has been like making it as real as possible. So it just seems like that was just one more moment of that.
Yeah, it's sort of making the movie. Everyone says, like, how is it working with Sean? It's sort of the spirit that he brings to even set. It totally embodies the movie. It's like I wasn't even scheduled to shoot the first day, and then I went, and he was, he had his handheld and his DP, and so we were like, oh, let's go over to Salvation Mountain. So it's like, that's how he is, and it's so much easier for me like that. If I start thinking too much about things, if I like start to try to predetermine anything or be too analytical, it's like it feels so much better when it's not, when you don't think about that kind of stuff in real life. You just do it, and so if you don't have to lie, it feels so much better. You feel like you're actually doing a service to the people that you're playing. So it's and with Sean, you don't lie. It's impossible.
Like, because he sees right through any sort of note of falsity? Is that...
Yeah, I don't even know what it is. It's just the scenes that I did with him, I never had that feeling. I never left kind of like I faked that. It's the worst when you have to fake something. And you do it as an actor, especially if you've kind of like, been doing it a little while and you've established or you've sort of grown tools that you can like rely on. Really should never crack those out. It should just happen. And with him it does. I don't know.
Is that scene when you go up and talk to that old man? There's some guy who's showing like these
Salvation
weird.
Mountain.
That was that scene.
Yeah.
So that must have been improv, or that guy. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Because it's like it does totally seem like it just sort of happened on the fly, and the camera just sort of caught him. And
that's what happened. It was a slug line in the script. It was Chris and Tracy go to Salvation Mountain, and this guy's there. He lives, probably a couple 100 yards away from the slabs. At his mountain, he crashed his hot air balloon there about 30 years ago, and is just like filled and beaming and gushing with like love and love for God and people, and just made this mountain in reverence to that. And it's like this oasis. You're driving through the desert, and all of a sudden it's just like this huge color. It's insane in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, it's a really, it's a beautiful scene. You can see those moments, where it's like, it's the actors, or it's the characters sort of being themselves.
Yeah.
It's a nice. nice interludes, and there's a lot of those like that, like the apple scene.
I know, I love that.
Yeah.
It's so funny because he told me about that because I shot like the last week that they were filming, and he was like, yeah, I don't think Sean liked it, but I really wanted to eat this apple, and it was really funny. And they used it, Sean ended up really liking it. He thought it was stupid on the day.
So about your character's relationship with Chris.
Mm.
What do you think? What do you think that relationship was like? Because clearly for Tracy,
mm-hmm.
yeah, it means so much.
Yeah.
And but I don't know. Do you think for him it didn't mean much?
I think to think about that guy, to think about Chris, like as a real person, and also as as what Emil and Sean made him to be. That was always a question, like how was he with girls? He didn't have like girlfriends growing up, but he's like one of the most charismatic. Like, I mean, he's like he's like the greatest guy, and I think probably I think it was just the general idea of Tracy that was great. It wasn't necessarily, it was like maybe he didn't have, you should ask Emil this, it would be interesting.
Mm.
But it's like she was just one thing in the big picture. She was just another, moment of beauty. It's like she latched onto that, and he can't do that as a person. His spirit just doesn't, it just goes. He doesn't hold on to things. Although in the end, despite, what pushed him to go was that you don't need ties and that you don't necessarily need personal human relationships to make you happy. That you can find it solitary in nature and in the wild. He gets right back, he gets, happiness isn't, what is it?
Yeah, happiness is not real. Happiness is only real when shared.
Yeah. So, it's full circle, so it's like they have more in common than they think, maybe.
Yeah.
As all humans do. That's the point. Is it's the most human story. I don't feel like I could talk to anyone in any country on this planet, and I would have a conversation with them about this movie. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think? I don't know. What were your thoughts about just like? Did you read the book, or did you before getting into the role? Did you have any? Did you know who this guy was, or at least when you read about or heard about him,
right.
what sort of thoughts did you have about who he was and what he did?
Right. I'd seen the book a million times, and the books I just had never read it.
Me too.
Yeah. So, like I said, the first time that I heard of this story I had anything to do with it was through Sean and at this read through, and it's probably the most fundamental human. It's like I feel like such a simpleton too talking about this movie because it's just so basic. It's just human freedom. It's just like primordial, almost animalistic. And anyone living like in the world that we live in now who is slightly aware of what's going on has to. Maybe not in such a radical, extreme way, but has to identify with him. I talk to people who read the book and are frustrated. They disapprove of his arrogance and they just don't stand behind him. And the book it lays out the facts a little bit more. It doesn't get into in this movie, obviously, we have a guy playing Chris, and you get to know him. You feel like you really know him. And I feel like the cool thing about this movie is that there's no question at the end. It's like it wasn't suicide. He wanted to, he wanted to live. It wasn't that. It was circumstantial, and it was like through this movie you get to take the trip that he took, and you understand a lot better, or at least for me, better than the book.